we're going to kick off the next panel. This one is on Web3 tools, ownership, security, and growth. I think we'll start by getting our panelists to introduce themselves, maybe just your name, the company, and obviously a little bit about specifically what you guys are working on. Why don't we start with Glenn at the end there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me here. I'm Glenn Rothwell. I lead the new business team at Alchemy. Alchemy is the leading provider of Web3 infrastructure tools for developers. We have like dozens of different APIs that developers can use to build dApps and various other projects in Web3, normally based out of New York and first time here in Singapore. So super excited to be here.
Hey everyone, my name is Vahe. I'm co-founder of Hexsense. We do everything cybersecurity in blockchain, and specifically also toolings and products for scaling this security on different chains. Yeah.
I'm Yaniv. I'm the CEO of Enrich. Enrich is basically a go-to-market platform for Web3 companies, enabling you to do everything mostly on Telegram and Slack, from lead generation down to customer engagement and end-to-end sales and customer success processes.
And yeah, hey, I'm Alexis. I'm the Global Partnerships Manager at Safe. So Safe is the largest non-custodial wallet in crypto with over $70 billion secured. We also offer an open source technology toolkit for anyone building their applications across Web3. Some great examples of teams using Safe for their applications today are WorldCoin, Polymarket, Gnosis Pay, Based App. Lots of really good examples. Whenever you create an account with one of those, there's a Safe under the hood.
Amazing. And then my name is Sultan Kazi. I go by Salty. I'm the VP of Strategy at Cube3. We're a real-time crypto fraud prevention platform leveraging AI to kind of hopefully stop all the negative stuff that you hear around scams, phishing, rug pulls, etc. So let's jump into our first question. And maybe this one we'll start with Vahe, just given that it's a little bit more security focused. How do Web3 tools contribute to improving the management of security and as a byproduct of that, user accounts?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a really very big question because there are lots of different ways how users can lose money basically in Web3. It's not only phishing, frauds, and etc. A large part of it is actually that attack vectors. But for example, in our case, we mainly focus on more technology-based attack vectors like smart contract and smart contract security. But in general, I think tooling is super crucial in this industry because, as with also Web2, like the industry is safe, let's say, is mature in terms of security if it does have decent amount of toolings, and adoption of these toolings is not only you need to have tools, you need to have people to use these tools also somehow. So yeah, I think in terms of Web3, we're still at the very beginning of this story because it's almost, I think it's like over $1 trillion industry, right? But the tooling is not there yet. At least from security perspective, that's what I can tell, is that there's still so much that can be done. And it's really hard to scale things just with audits or with manual work or companies just providing services. That's great, of course, but there's so much that you can do during the year. Let's say a dozen of audits each company. It's not that scalable. So the way to scale it is to actually bring tools that can do that and for people to use them.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can share a little bit maybe from the end user perspective, right? So as someone who's been in crypto for a long time, I'm almost going to take an optimistic stance on this and say, whereas there's a lot more that we have to do, like technology has improved by leaps and bounds, really. Anyone who was using like MetaMask in like 2017, 2018, you know, you're randomly signing transactions with all these weird numbers and characters and things, and you have no idea what you're doing. Then we saw kind of like the first evolution of Web3 security where we have like browser pop-up tools, tools that are basically telling you before you sign a transaction in plain text English what's going to happen. And now we're kind of on to the next evolution of that, where we have teams like Cube3 AI and others where they're almost embedding that security experience within many of the leading wallets. So nowadays, if you use MetaMask, Coinbase Wallet, and many other leading wallets, they're actually going to have things like transaction simulation, plain text English, and stuff like that baked in. And now also with the advent of like smart accounts and embedded accounts, like some of the great work that teams like Safe and Alchemy are doing here, it presents, I think, another unique opportunity to embed security within the user account level. And yeah, so much progress to happen, but I think we've made really good strides there.
Yeah, I can jump in. So one of the key pillars at Safe is that we want to provide everyone with a secure way to manage and access their funds on chain. The main difference between having a smart account is that it's fully programmable, meaning that you can instill and program any type of security considerations that you want into your wallet. So you can have it as secure as you want or as lax as you want, to be honest. So what we're most known for is our multi-sig capabilities. We're the first multi-sig wallet on EVM, which means that you can assign different signers and private keys to enable access and spending on your account, whether that's a cold wallet or a browser extension or even a third-party institutional custodian. You can split responsibility and ownership of a single wallet between these three signers. What you can also do, though, is programmatically enable features like recovery, dead man switch, spending limits, and even roles. So even if every single one of your private keys are compromised, there's still ways to ensure and secure your funds. So security is a core pillar of what we focus on. We think it's really important, and that's why we've also opened up tools and access and processes for people to build on Safe too.
Yeah, I actually agree with everything that you guys said. And Mahi, one thing that you mentioned that I would kind of want to double click on is around kind of adoption, right? Because I think that across the board, there's a lot of really great tools, especially let's say on the security side of things, whether that's asset security, whether it's smart contract security. But the adoption seems to be something that, at least in my mind, with the work that I've been doing, it seems to be lagging. I'm curious, what kind of hurdles do you see specifically within the cybersecurity side of things in the landscape right now?
You mean trends?
Yeah, there can be trends or just like issues that are maybe not being managed that well, or I guess getting in the way of security more generally.
I think one of the problems is that the knowledge about security is very fragmented. I think this is something that this problem actually works on almost everything in Web3, the fragmentation of the knowledge. And it's really hard to just compile in one place, just find one place, verifiable, a good source of information where you can start learning something. The same goes for blockchain, Web3 security as well. So one of the things and how we're trying to address using our tools is to kind of formalize this knowledge and to distribute to the community the ability to formalize this knowledge, because there is a lot of knowledge about, let's say, attack vectors, bugs, different type of issues for contracts or not only for contracts, but it's not being reused because it's not formalized, and there's no single, let's say, easily managed place where you can find all this information. So that's one of the things we're trying to address as well. Community has a lot of knowledge. We're saying, yeah, here's the tool, how you can formalize it, and how every other chain and every contract that will be deployed on this chain can actually utilize after you're formalizing this bug. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's shift gears a little bit here. Obviously, and Yaniv, I'll throw this one to you, just given I think you'd have some good insight on this. So with the Web3 tools that are available, how can some of these tools and technologies help in terms of driving scalability and growth within the ecosystem?
So that's exactly the pillar of where we're at, right? So I think it has to do with, and I'll touch upon it probably later on in terms of Ismail's security, but there is one word that I usually like to say about Web3 businesses is that we need to go on to the next level and mature. Mature in terms of what we do in terms of security, that audits is not enough, and I'm sure Vahe here will touch upon that way more. And mature in terms of businesses need to scale up and create revenue. So a lot of Web3 businesses are actually showing very good business models, but are lacking the capability to scale or run the economics of scale in a very large scale manner that is expected from a business to exist for the long term. And I think that that's where pivotal go-to-market platforms come in, where those tools would enable you to do that. Today you're doing manually, walking around in conferences for hours, managing your telegrams like insanity, and needing to actually grow your business in a much smarter way. That if I'm going to triple the amount I'm spending on X, I'm going to get 3X at the bottom of the funnel in terms of close one, just predictability in terms of pipeline, revenue, and so on. And I think that's where a lot of the space is currently lacking. Not for a lot of it is due to it being very innovative. It's one of the first spaces that took IM, instant messaging, to the extreme of running the whole business on instant messaging. Barely any emails are used in the space. And the usual go-to-market platforms that you're used to using, like Salesforce, HubSpot, ZoomInfo, and you're used to running businesses, just don't operate in the space. And we need a new wave of tools that will basically adopt those technologies in a Web3 crypto IM-friendly way and actually enable these companies to grow and build their economics of scale as they grow.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that it's pretty crazy. Like that the piece you said about how the entire industry does like BD over instant messaging. Like it's kind of it seems crazy from the outside, but obviously once you get in there, you kind of realize like email is dead, right? Very much so. Glenn, maybe from Alchemy's perspective, I mean, you guys have a pretty big toolbox, if you will, in terms of what you guys offer. I guess what are a couple of things that you guys focus on or offer that specifically would help with when it comes to growth, whether it's, I guess, for the organization or let's say a project's ecosystem?
Yeah, totally. So when I speak about growth, I'm going to, I guess, talk about end user growth. And historically, like one of the big limits on growing your users for your crypto app, at least in the EVM space, was like the cost, right, of scaling. Like you would reach a certain point, and if you had like thousands of users, all of a sudden the gas fees would go really high, like on your app, right? We saw this famously last cycle, and like with OpenSea, when people were doing NFT mints and spending like 2 ETH on gas, like in some cases. The good news is like a lot of those challenges have actually been solved by things like blobs in the EVM space, where now on an L2, it only costs like a few pennies to, put through a transaction. So at Alchemy, like some stuff that we're really excited about is like how we kind of have that full 360-degree developer kit for folks, where if they're building an application, not only do they get the highly performant like RPC indexing and infrastructure, but we also, about 2 months ago, we launched a rollups as a service solution. Our first public kind of marquee partner there was WorldCoin, which was mentioned before. And this was actually a unique use case where an app kind of outgrew the constraints of the chain that it was on, right? They were taking up about 50% of all block space on Optimism public layer 2. So by helping them like deploy this rollup easily, they're able to then pass on those lower costs to end users and just have a more frictionless kind of end user experience. So I think that, and then in comparison with, we also heard that like Safe is helping power WorldCoin, like all these tools kind of together have actually advanced a lot to be able to improve the experience. Now we just need more app builders to build apps as big as WorldCoin with 6 million plus users, right? That's what I'm most excited to see.
Absolutely. And I guess, Alexis, kind of like building off of that, with what you guys are working on, how do you see, I guess, when you're approaching growth in an organization that you're working with, what kind of tools do you guys use to be able to kind of enable that?
So it was mentioned that the Web3 space is not very mature in terms of a lot of the tooling that companies can use in order to engage and grow their users. A key thing when we're looking at Web3 companies versus Web2 companies and protocols in general that I think that we have a huge advantages is how composable the industry is. We have a large focus on building modular, and I think it's really important, and you can really leverage network effects when you're building an application that is fully composable, meaning that you can build with and on top of and connect to every single other application or chain that's being deployed out there. Similar to what Alchemy is doing, there's a lot of new chains being deployed every single day, and the more dApps and consumer dApps we're seeing, we're going to see more chains. And it's really important that when you're building within the EVM space, especially, that you're able to port and migrate your app into all of these chains. So you need to go to where the user is and not have the user come to you. And I think that for us at Safe, that's really important in terms of ensuring that we have consistent user growth and adoption, being there and making a convenient experience for the user.
Makes sense. So one thing that obviously is really unique about our industry is the availability of on-chain data, right? Obviously it's public, it's available. And I think that that gives Web3 businesses a very interesting opportunity to leverage said data. So I'm curious, and maybe Yaniv, we'll start with you on this one. I guess in what ways can tooling and organizations focused on that help facilitate better engagement, tracking, indications, and I guess leveraging that available data on chain?
Whenever I interview somebody to the company that used to work in the Web2 space, and I share with them the vast amount of information you can get on a company that's on chain, they're shocked. When I tell them, you can say how many unique active users they have, how much money is being transferred there, what's their revenue, what code bases are they using, what anything basically they do is out there. And they just get extremely shocked because the amount of effort you have to put in the traditional industry in order to get all that information is insane. And most of that information has to do a lot of the times in terms of growth for intent. Let's take one example. You were talking earlier about security. If a company is now deploying a smart contract on testnet, that's extremely interesting for a company like Exens, for example, or for any security firm like Cube3, for example. If a company now, like Glenn was talking before, is playing around with account abstraction, a company like Alchemy would want to know about this and would probably want to reach out to them. And since all of these things are obviously randomized and not very easily to encrypt, but if you're able to encrypt those and actually understand which companies those perform these actions, you suddenly can have a goldmine of information about their intent. What have they done? What are they planning on doing? What are the new things they're experimenting? And for growth professionals, for marketeers, for companies in general, seeing where the interest is before, what people are actually using and involving with can be tremendous. So I always like to give that example. When I interviewed my VP marketing, and I shared with her a quick demo of the platform and what we're actually able to extract from companies, she sat there with her face shocked. And she told me, all right, I'm in. I don't know. I don't understand the Web3 space. I don't know what you guys are doing. I just know that I can do a gold mine from basically the amount of information you guys are able to extract and understand about companies. And it's huge that all the companies out there are still public. So, yeah.
I'll tell one non-obvious thing is that the tool that we're working right now, it's called the Glider. That actually the idea came from this information actually being, available and out there, accessible for everyone. So let me just shortly tell you what it does. Glider is a query engine that helps everyone to describe a scenario of code and then find all the matches on all the blockchain contracts that are out there. So we started with looking at the contract code. We're like, everybody's deploying a contract, and if it does something that a user will use, with almost 100% confidence, they will have the source code of the contract out there as well. And so we have the source code of almost all the contracts out there, and there is no tool that actually addresses this scale of contract security, let's say. Yeah, you do have some static analysis tools, other kind of analysis tools. They are great, no question there, but they're not scalable for millions of contracts, right? The Ethereum has, 65 or maybe already 66 million contracts, so you cannot scan all of them. You can scan maybe 20, something like that on your PC. So what we did is we kind of created, so we get all these contracts, and that's actually available for everyone, all the source codes, right? So we collect all the source code, we create a specialized database, and we give you a framework to describe a code scenario. You're like, if a code does this and this, and then it does this, then it's vulnerable. And you kind of formalize that, and you run and you see, you run it on whole blockchains, and you see all the matches out there. So that's the idea actually came from that. It was not even starting from, let's say, a security something. It actually came from data being available and out there in Web3. And that's one of the greatest things we have in Web2, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll just add one thing on this. So Web3 is kind of a catalysator in that essence that you're seeing it in more and more industries about information becoming more third-party oriented, especially now with what we're seeing in the past year in terms of AI and unstructured data. But suddenly, even traditional companies are understanding the gold mine and having a lot of that information open out in the public. So Web3 is maybe the first industry that went to like an extreme of having almost everything open and out there and being completely exposed. But you are seeing in traditional industries as well that shift that's starting to happen in understanding that third party and complete open unstructured data has a lot more information than what they currently use and they can actually take advantage of. So I just connecting that to Ma's point, that trend is just going to continue and grow.
Yeah, I have something to add here too, which is maybe just like a call to action for one of the like best potential Web3 use cases, I think, that has real world implications. Like we've seen many attempts at building like a Web3 cookie, essentially, right, for like that traditional advertising industry. But everybody's approach is like very siloed, and they're trying to create their own like proprietary identity protocol, and then they have like a big barrier, to onboard users and get them to use that, and interoperability and all this stuff. I think there's really huge potential for someone to build a truly open, permissionless system for like Web3 cookie for the advertising industry, maybe tied in with like DIDs or some other kind of open standard that allows people to opt into their information being shared, and then they get rewarded in exchange for that, right? Paid essentially for sharing their data. That's still one of those things where like it's obviously hard to pull off and execute, but would love to see, someone build an open kind of permissionless system to leverage data in that way.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I've heard that idea, since I guess came into Web3, and to me, it's kind of crazy that it still has never kind of come to fruition, because you look at like, I imagine every single one of us, what our organizations would probably be willing to pay for that type of data, right? And you think about it, advertising is the perfect example. So much money in advertising is because it's being shown to people who have absolutely no interest in whatever it may be. So I think that's a really, really interesting use case, and maybe someone here will one day do it. I guess so we got about 9 minutes. So I'd be curious in understanding, obviously the world of Web3 tooling is quite broad, right? Just on this panel alone, you can see that there's very, very different verticals. I guess for each of you, and potentially, I guess maybe from your personal view, and then also maybe from your organizational view, what is one or two topics or trends that you foresee kind of shaping the future of Web3 tooling, specifically in your industry? And Glenn, let's start maybe on your end.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give the personal answer first, and I'm going to talk about another idealistic use case, I guess. I would also love to see Web3 tooling grow in like the professional credential space. Brian Armstrong, about a year ago, he shared like a list of from Coinbase. He listed like top 10 projects he wanted to see built, and this was one of them. There's so much like untapped potential out there. The fact that LinkedIn profiles are unverified, and we have a blockchain technology that could essentially prove that. That's another like area, I guess like advertising and then the professional credentials. Those are two things on a personal level. I'd really love to see Web3 tooling grow to take advantage of the power of the blockchain to solve like real problems. And then from an organizational point of view, I think definitely, I would say like roll-ups is a really big trend that we're seeing at Alchemy right now. I think not every team necessarily needs to launch a roll-up, but certainly ones that are forward-thinking and expect to have, let's say you're building a game and you're going to have like thousands and thousands of end users, and you want the game to be fully on-chain. You're going to run into like some very real constraints with doing that. So that's something that we're definitely very excited about to be powering many of the top teams in the space.
If we talk about the security tooling, I think that a lot of companies need to be more let's say, take more community-driven path. So not in terms of the company, of course, but in the terms of the toolings that they're building, because there are lots of great tools that are built by companies, but they're like, let's say, isolated. They isolate the information. They're like, our internal engineering teams know, like, they have this know-how and they have this internal knowledge of something, and we're going to isolate that. And I think that it's not that good idea. I think that security tooling should be community driven, because there's so much knowledge out there, and like, it's not being useful just being out there. You need to organize this, right? I think that's one of the most important thing. And the second one, which is kind of interconnected with the community, is that the tools need to be a bit more easier to use. Let's say we should also work on the usability, how easy it is to run the tool, to, I don't know, work with it, tweak it, and etc. Because as you also mentioned, there are great tools out there, even for like security oriented tools, but very few people use that. Because like the onboarding process is really very long. The learning curve is not steep. So yeah, we need to work on that side as well. So more people start using it. Not only security engineers that start using it ideally, but also developers should start using them.
Cool. So I'm gonna take it into to a different route. So we all probably know the sentence that says, "I went down the rabbit hole." And I think what we'll notice with Web3 tools is that a lot of them that have started growing and getting a lot of traction in the space need to start growing outside of the rabbit hole. There's a huge advantage in the Web3 space that you can grow and you can be very, very focused and grow to be a very solid company. However, the space is not big enough yet for Web3 tools. And that means that a lot of these companies in the next couple of years would need to find a way to, how do they grow out of that rabbit hole and take what they've done and performed in the Web3 space and expand it into other verticals outside of the Web3 space, because at the end of the day, you want to be aiming at a large enough market. Now, all of us are hoping and we want to see the Web3 space growing, and hopefully it will continuously grow. But the economics of scale would make, I believe, most of the Web3 tooling platforms to find a way for them to grow outside of this rabbit hole and expand into other verticals, which is not as spoken in most of these events as much, but it will definitely happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think to follow up on what Yaniv said, I think we just need more breakout consumer applications. We need more WorldCoins, more poly markets, more applications where we're onboarding users that they don't know or care what crypto is. Crypto is infrastructure, and Web3 tooling that is supporting this infrastructure needs to be under the hood. We need to be onboarding users into really good, simple UX that they can use, reap all the benefits that the blockchain has to offer without them actually knowing about crypto. From a personal, that's I think a bit more from a personal perspective. From Safe perspective, we're very interested and very excited about the upcoming Ethereum hard fork, Pectra, coming at the end of January. That's going to enable particularly EIP 7702, which will allow every single user on Ethereum with any type of wallet, whether that's a MetaMask, a Rabby, or Trust Wallet, an Exodus, to engage and access all the benefits and tools of a smart contract account like Safe. So without having to install or have any pre-advanced information on how to work a smart contract wallet, you'd be able to benefit from this full security, recoverability, modularity, and all the other features. So I think it's a huge leap for user experience and hopefully going to allow us to onboard a lot more users.
Perfect. Yeah, I think on my end, on the personal side, you kind of, I guess, took the words, right from my mouth. Realistically, I think that people have said, like, my mom, my grandma should be able to use anything Web3, and I actually think that your version is even better, where underneath it is Web3, but on top it doesn't look and feel any different from them logging into their Citibank mobile app. I think that that's crucial, and we won't get the level of adoption that we need to for Web3 to become the I guess behemoth of an industry that we're all sure that it's going to be one day, but not quite there yet. And then on the, I guess, Cube3 side of things, I think that specifically I'm looking forward to kind of, and this is part of what we're trying to build, is bridging the gap between the TradFi and CFI, or sorry, and DeFi world in terms of that gray area where things go from, on ramp into crypto and then vice versa. That's where a lot of damage is happening. Realistically, that's where, people are losing life savings. They're getting scammed, they're getting hacked, whatever it may be. So I think that the better job that we can do bridging that gap, and this is only possible through collaboration, right? Realistically, Cube3, Hexen's working with, like organizations on the Web2 security side of things, working with TradFi organizations, working with DeFi organizations. None of us are going to be able to build, TradFi rails to connect. It's going to have to be, kind of building a bridge from both sides. So I think that's very much, hopefully what the future looks like. And with that, we're actually almost perfectly on time. So big round of applause for the panelists, and thank you for taking a listen.
Thanks for having us.